let's turn our attention to Scott's newest data on the 2024 presidential election, the key issues, and the Electoral College map.
You know, I feel a little bad going from that let's all hang together to a very divisive political dynamic, but that's where we are. So look, there are three issues that have been the most important for this election all year: inflation, other economic concerns, and immigration. So where do people stand on this? Well, first of all, when we talk about inflation as a big issue, 3 out of 4 say, yeah, this is very important. Who do they trust? Well, Donald Trump has a very slight edge. Big story here is that when Joe Biden was running, this was a double-digit gap. When Harris first became the nominee, it was a big gap. She has closed that. I think part of this is the fact that people aren't giving Harris credit or blame for the Biden economy.
That's an interesting point, because that was something Trump would have to do, is be able to tie her to the decisions that were made regarding the inflation and the economy.
Right. And you know, he's talked a little bit about tariffs, which isn't really a compelling message on things he wants to talk about. So I think this is the reason the race is so close. If the Republicans don't have a big edge on economic issues, they have to be a little bit concerned.
Okay. And the next one, the economy, which everybody is talking about.
Right. You've got inflation, 74%. The economy overall, 72% say it's very important. And no surprise, very similar numbers on who do you trust. Bottom line, whether you're concerned about the price of eggs or gas or housing prices or something else or jobs, right now people don't see a big difference between these two candidates, which again says we're setting up for a very close election. Now, one area where Donald Trump does have an advantage, no surprise here, immigration, border security. 6 out of 10 voters say it's very important, so obviously still a significant issue. It's been in the top 3 all year.
And that is the biggest gap we see there.
Right. 8-point advantage for Donald Trump on immigration. You know, the more there is focus on border security, the better his case looks for most voters. Well, let's go to the Electoral College map. You know, when we began this season and we began talking about the Biden-Trump map, it looked pretty much like this, and it looked the same when Harris first became the nominee. Harris, 225, Trump, 219, and there are 7 toss-up states. You need 270 to win. Now, E.D., you may remember when we first talked about this, we thought Donald Trump had the edge with Joe Biden in the 4 southern states.
So start out with Nevada?
Nevada, if you give that to Donald Trump, and again, he was safe, he was ahead, but it wasn't comfortable.
Right.
Same in Arizona, and we'll go over to your side of the map. Georgia, and
then North Carolina.
If that were the case, well, Donald Trump is all the way at 268. He needs just 2 more. So what we said with Joe Biden, and if this map played out this way with Kamala Harris, she'd need to win all 3 of those toss-up states. And go ahead and move those over for us, Edie.
Pennsylvania,
if that were to go Democratic, and Michigan, and then finally Wisconsin. Well, if that happens, we've got Harris at 269, Trump at 268. Nobody's at 270. Why is that? Because in Nebraska, they give out electoral college votes by congressional district. District number 2 right now is purely in a toss-up space. If that were to go to Kamala Harris, she would get to 270. She would become president. If it were to go to the Republican, well, then it'd be 269 to 269, the nightmare scenario of a tie in the Electoral College. Eventually, the House of Representatives would pick it, and that would probably mean Donald Trump emerges victorious. Okay, now let's go back to the 7 toss-up states. Look, this race is very, very close in all of these states. Long way to go. Either one of them could end up in either camp. But look, I think if you're betting, you probably say Arizona is more likely to be a Republican state. You're probably saying Wisconsin is more likely to be a Democratic state. And then North Carolina is going to be
that's looking stronger for Trump right now.
Yeah, that's probably the strongest of these toss-up states.
Right.
That gets you Trump 246, Harris 235. And Edie, what do you always say about money in politics?
Follow the money. If you want to know what's important to the politicians, look at where they spend their money and their time.
That's right. Most of the money is being spent in Pennsylvania and in Georgia. So what happens if Donald Trump were to win those states? Well, if he gets Pennsylvania alone, he's at 265, and he gets Georgia, well, that's enough to put him over the top. Doesn't matter what happens in Michigan or Nevada. Now, if things go the other way, of course, it's good news for Kamala Harris. The point here is we don't know how these states are going to play out, especially Pennsylvania and Georgia.
Now, let me just ask you this. The candidates, are they both spending a lot of money here?
Both spending a lot of money.
So they
in these
both
two
have
states.
realized, or they're at least at this point recognizing that's the important spot.
That is the important spot. And look, there may be other combinations we could come up with, and I would still rank Georgia and Pennsylvania as pure toss-ups, so neither side has this wrapped up. But the big takeaway is that compared to when Joe Biden was running, there are several scenarios where Kamala Harris could win and different ways that Donald Trump might win the map.
My son started college 2 weeks ago, and as I was moving him into the dorm, like many of you, I was looking around because I want to get a sense of whether or not I think he's safe, whether protesters would block him from getting to class. Protesting the Israeli-Hamas war forces balancing freedom of speech with student safety. And last spring, as protesters attacked police, vandalized buildings, yelled at, spit on Jewish students, it was pretty clear colleges failed to the safety test. So what about this semester? Scott, what are the voters saying?
Well, half of voters, 51%, say the colleges have been too lenient in dealing with those protesters, and really hardly anybody thinks they've been too harsh. A lot of other people say, yeah, it's okay. One of the really interesting tidbits on this, you and I talk about the elite 1% a lot, that group with a postgraduate degree, they make a lot of money and live in a densely populated urban area.
The ones who think they're smarter and richer than us.
Right, and they happen to agree with voters on this one. 54% of the elites say the schools have been too lenient. So we're in a situation where these protests, people expect them to happen. There are concerns. And one of the big issues in the spring was students weren't allowed to go to class. They were blocked from taking part in campus life. 2 out of 3 voters tell us if that happens, we should send in the National Guard to make sure those students, especially the Jewish students, are safe and can get to class. In these campus situations, the end result has been to increase support for Israel. 42% of voters now tell us we should be supporting Israel in the war. That's up from 38% a month ago and up 6 points from 2 months ago. So these protests, whether they're at the DNC or on campus, are backfiring.
And something that you picked up on in some of your polling, we didn't discuss it earlier, but it's very interesting, the distinction between people who are supporting Israel and the Palestinians versus people who support Jews and Muslims in terms of discrimination and issues that they face.
Right. So the question was about discrimination. And one of the challenges, if I say, are Jewish students discriminated against, most people are going to say yes. Are Muslim students, most people are going to say yes. We wanted to get a sense of where the dynamics are, who is feeling the most persecution. When we gave a trade-off between Jewish students and Palestinians by a 47-19 margin, pretty significant margin, people said Jewish students are facing much more discrimination. When we made the trade-off between Jewish students and Muslim students, it was pretty much even. 37% said Jewish students, 35% said the Muslim students. So the terminology matters an awful lot in these circumstances. And by the way, something else that came out of a related study in all of this might surprise you. Despite all that we've heard and all the comments we made about the political situation, when we ask voters which party is more supportive of Jewish Americans, it's split right down the middle between the number who say Republicans and Democrats.
Very interesting. That's why we like tuning in to watch you every Sunday. Tuesday is the long-awaited debate between Harris and Trump. Harris right now is hedging on whether she'll agree to a second debate, so the stakes are about as high as they can get. Scott, does everybody know there's a debate going on?
Well, 44% of voters do know there's a debate going on.
44%?
Right, so fewer than half. This is one of those things. We talked about this when the Trump-Biden debate was approaching. In the political world, they think everybody in America can't wait. They're on pins and needles. No, that's the Super Bowl, not the debates. And in this case, fewer than half of voters know what's going on. And of that group, only about 2/3 of them say they're definitely going to watch. So we have 28% of voters who know the debate is coming, and they can't wait.
I did hear someone say, okay, yeah, the debate's Tuesday, but the NFL is still starting the season, right? I mean, it really is interesting how Americans look at this and how people who are more on the inside or, this is how we get our thrills. You and I love looking at the betting sites for this.
Oh, yes.
Not that we're betting on it, but that you look at these and it's things like, will they shake hands? Will they try to talk over each other? All sorts of weird stuff in there.
And we talk a lot about issues and different things, but it is those dynamics that will have an impact. If Donald Trump is very respectful of Kamala Harris and calls her Madam Vice President, wow, that would shock everybody and probably throw her off her game a little bit. When she gets into policy areas, if she is at all inconsistent, that could be a problem.
You mean word salad?
If she comes up with a word salad. On the other hand, if she has some crisp, clear talking points, that would shock people. So I think it's a lot in the dynamics of the way the debate will unfold, and that will permeate even into all those stories about the football season.
Maybe, possibly, but it is the NFL. We're just about out of time, and we bring you a lot of new information each week, and then we wanted to make it available to you because it's hard to keep track of it all. So you go to napolitannews.org. All the polling data discussed on today's show is posted there. So what is the number not to forget?
Well, the number not to forget this week, 51%. Just over half, 51% of voters believe that colleges have been too lenient on dealing with pro-Palestinian protesters. That's it for this week on the Scott Rasmussen Show. Stay connected with us all week. For E.D. Hill and the entire team that's helped put this program together, I'm Scott Rasmussen. America, have a great week.